First off, take the word conquistador. It's a compound word. In Latin, it means the Tudors' conquest. The Tudors is the black nobility of Europe. They came into Europe as Etruscans and settled Tuscany in Italy, modern day Italy. Then they spread out, and they was teaching Latin as a scholarly language. Now, before they came, the Egyptian priests had set up the Hellenistic systems of Greece, and they was teaching Greek as the scholarly language, right? So the Latin languages are offshoots of languages written in temples. The Latin language was written for the purpose of conjure. That's why it's considered a dead language, right? Because now you got to talk about the corpus. You're dealing with the corpse. You're dealing with the living dead. When you're talking about Latin, Latin is the language of law. They use the law in the uniform system to appear to be legitimate, right? So when they got kicked out of Europe, they was looking for a new homeland. This is why the conquistadors was raiding in Latin America, what they call Latin America now. It's really not Latin America because ain't nothing Latin about it. Them people was already there. Right. So the wars was with conquistadors, with melanated Spanish-speaking Moors. They came over here to settle. They brought slaves with them. Their slaves didn't look like them. They called them white niggas for the Irish ones. You can look this stuff up, it ain't hard to find. They called the term slave come from the Slavs that they were enslaving or enslaving. So this is who the conquistadors was the Spanish arm of the invasion forces that invaded the land. They had French, Spanish, and English forces, and they was all controlled by black nobility of Europe. The color code for the races was to keep the races fighting the races so that they can continue to control both sides. We never would have thought somebody looked like us would be behind the oppressive regime that's ruling over us. We thought they looked like them. You know, so that's who they are. The connection is the Scottish Rite Freemasonry that came over here with the conquistadors. These was the ones they was talking about debating on the Senate floor what would be the constitutional government, the ceasefire agreements in the civil wars of America. So the Moorish Zionist temple was the ones who was holding the secret to the conjure war between the two sides. We didn't know, but they knew. Because they knew, they held what's called the upper hand. And you know, the upper hand is a hand always raised, threatening to slap you upside your head if you don't do what they want. Right? So when Noble Drew Ali was traveling the land trying to figure out what's wrong with his people, he infiltrated them as a longshoreman and he came in as a drifter. Right. This take us to Pleasant Bay Sacred Drift, understanding the Moorish science. So when you go in there, he started to get the secrets of what this war that they waged was about and how it was implemented. So then now they have to put the secrets out in the open so that the chiefs that's not the chiefs that's traversing the land trying to figure out what's wrong with the people can put the puzzle together. Putting the puzzle together is where we tribing up at. How are we tribing up? Who we rallying around? That's how we finding the chiefs. Right? And what part of the land they own. This tells us the size of the tribe that normally concentrate in a certain geographical location according to the historical nature of the land that we come from. Chief read the land like the librarian read the book. Right? So we know how we supposed to behave in Memphis. If I see something out of place, I know it ain't from Memphis. Right? If we go to Atlanta, it's a certain energy down there, a certain frequency. If something don't move the way it's supposed to move in Atlanta, outsiders in the land. Same with Chicago, Detroit, New York, LA. The people got customs and traditions that they like to cling on to. And that's how you find your people when y'all in amnesia.
Hey, Rod. Now, this is another question I got for you because this black going on the black conquistadors. Now, these guys, if you like, from my research on them, it seemed like they got a lot of gold when they came over here.
That's like what they were stealing.
Yeah, they were stealing gold.
Look, now, remember the outlaws of the Wild Wild West robbing the banks, the bank robberies, Billy the Kid, all of that. They was robbing Big Mama's house.
Yeah, Bat Masterson, all of
them. That was our family banks. You got to go back and look. They was doing that to force us to centralize the banking system. You got to go back to the Federalist Papers and you can read about the arguments about centralizing the banking system between the so-called founding fathers. Right? So they had to put it all in the public so we could go back and find it. All of those old train tracks, them train tracks been there for thousands of years, man. Don't let them fool you. We've been running food on tracks of rail over here. Some of them go under the ground and come back up somewhere else on the other end of the land. Right? And then we had overland travel. Them became your truckers union. The truckers is the ones supposed to govern the transport of goods and services across the land. Right? That's their union. The steelworkers union is your smiths. Your goldsmiths was the family that worked the gold. Your blacksmiths was the family that worked the wrought iron, that made the fences and spray painted them black or dyed them black. So the trade that went on across the land, it doesn't look the same because the way that they interrupted it to make everything more uniform. Right? Yeah, uniform, yep. So we would do everything according to the flow of the land. We would move goods according to the time of the season. They move goods year round. Our trade systems was different. The Pony Express was coming from the Apaches getting motherfucking messages across the land at a rapid speed. The mail system came from us on the land. We knew how to traverse the land to get messages across the land that needed to be in paper format for whatever reason, or in some kind of tangible goods across the land. Sometimes it was weaponry, whatever. But that's where the Pony Express come from. That's who put the Pope in power. They live in Europe. They concentrated in Switzerland. And from Switzerland, they control the world through the banking system. The banking system had what's called economic hitmen to destabilize government, right? So from the American part, the American central banking system was controlled by them over here from upstate New Jersey and upstate New York and from them gated communities. That's why they had to always go to Martha's Vineyard and make those special trips before they can take office and fly to the pyramid in Egypt. They got to go see all of the ones that's overseeing the project. They might look African.
They might look African if they ain't African.
Look,
they look like us, but they ain't.
We got stuff twisted. We live in the reality of infinite probability.
Go ahead.
In the reality of infinite probability, anything that's probable is possible, and anything that's possible is reality.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be confused into thinking everything look human is human. Don't be confused that everything that you see on your TV is what's really going on in the world. Half of these motherfucking controlled, released information is to steer the thought pattern of the great egregore, the universal mind. I'm gonna fall for that shit.
I'm with you when you say they avatars and they can look African, but they can be reptilian or some other species that's fucking using
Remember Bobby Hemmett explained human artificial?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's what he's talking about.
It's interesting.
What he say when he started checking the timeline, he realized wasn't no pale faces here when this shit happened. Pale faces came about as an afterthought in order to create something called a cat's paw. In order to have a fall guy, a stunt dummy, right? Shame on her, trying to run game on her. So they want to try to turn Paleface against us and us against them. And all the time, the motherfuckers that keep bringing us down look like us.
Hey, ain't this the truth, man? The whole game, the black hand, the whole time, man. Get your hand out of my pocket. That's the whole game. That's the whole game.
You know that's a prison term, right?
Say what?
Get your hand out of my pocket, a prison term.
Go ahead. Could you go in on that a little bit?
Some of these prisons, if a guy got a homosexual, he got to hold his pocket, the inside of his pocket. And
yeah, I heard of it.
Yeah, sometimes they a homosexual be looking for a new dude. He come stick his hand and grab the inside of your pocket. If you ain't down with it, you tell him, get your motherfucking hand out of my pocket.
Wow, that's interesting. Hey, by the time if he putting your hand in your pocket, it's a fist already going inside his head simultaneously as he putting his hand in my pocket. Nigga, you ain't got no business with your hand in my pocket.
But see, they observe it in there. If you just push him away and you don't tell him to keep his hand out your pocket, that means you with the gangs. So let the gangs begin.
That shit crazy. That shit is really crazy. All right, so yeah, Now you say, where are these guys now? These black conquistadors, are they still controlling the game? Or are they at war? Because we heard that Donald Trump was working for these guys, the black hand guys, and they shitting the other guys is out to shut this shit down. Like Donald Trump is liquidated, it seems like, and shit coming out.
Listen, man, listen.
You think of them guys.
You can watch Donald Trump be trained to play the position that he playing.
Mm-hmm.
All you gotta do is know that he was the apprentice practicing on how to be an asshole on The Apprentice.
Mm-hmm.
And when he was in wrestling with Vince McMahon, he was learning how to play a heel, which is the bad guy. If you go back and look at his interviews from the 80s, you realize he was too fucking nice.
Right.
Right. But a lot of people don't know Trump grew up in the hip hop generation. He thugged out like us. He hanging out in the tunnel. Them Kennedy boys, they was hanging out with the early first generation OG rappers.
Mm-hmm.
You think we ain't gonna motherfucking get to one of them motherfuckers and be like, look, if it ever come an opportunity, we gonna need you to seize this power for us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You don't think we gonna never have enough sense to recover what's rightfully ours just by following the proper protocol?
Right.
Right. If it ain't ours, we won't never know what protocol to follow to get it back.
Right.
But if we follow the steps, we ain't gotta fight nobody. They gonna give it all back. They already did.
Yeah.
Right? So now we just in the process of being recipients of what's rightfully ours. We just back for everything they owe. That's all. Ain't nothing personal. It's just family business. And all the parts of the family is involved. Every part of the family doing their part of the business in order to get the family back on top.
Mm-hmm. Hey, somebody said, hey, shout out Big Chief Foe Eagle fellas. Brother Love. It says Zionist Jews Moors decided to move against the Earthborn. When did these beings Enlil's children decide to move against the Earthborn?
Look, when you go back to the Anunnaki Wars, right?
Mm-hmm.
You read about Enlil getting frustrated with Inanna about the mitochondrial rights to the earth.
Mm-hmm.
And he wants the rule to fall under the Y chromosome. This is the beginning of the gender wars and the destruction of the divine feminine. All this was happening at the same time. The war in heaven was a gender dispute over the planet's proper rulership and inheritance rights of gender by mitochondrial birthright. This is what the whole debate, destruction, war in heaven shit was about.
Fertility.
Well, not just fertility, because the fertility was forced by the advent of what we call the moon.
Mm.
So the women don't have no choice but to fall under the spell of the moon, and every 28 days her cycle begins.
Mm.
But when they was under the Lilith moon, they determined when they was gonna have a baby, and then they would call that energy forth to either parthogenically or heterosexually produce a child.
Hey, say, Raw, you know anything about some 10-foot beans at the mall in Florida? You heard anything about that?
Yep. The description with the no hands and no feet would tell me they would be Etherians. In the way they didn't walk, but they warped from one location to the next. That's how Etherians move. But as far as the overall thing, I think it's a script.
Yeah, hologram shit. So
I think it's part of a script. Because also, all of those politicians quit in Florida. Florida was ground zero of the Gullah Wars. Y'all got to remember that. Anytime something going on in Florida, they talking about the end of something. They finishing something up. It's being wrapped up. So you're going from Las Vegas to Miami on an alien journey. Remember, it started in Vegas 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
The finish line is in Florida. So they're telling you that something dealing with the alien agenda has come to a conclusion. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So the storyline, I think it's a script. But the coded message